Human accepted an alien slave as payment, only to discover she was a treasure. Jack Morrow leaned back in his chair and rubbed his tired eyes. The small trading station on the edge of known space was quiet, almost too quiet. He had been traveling between worlds for years, buying and selling goods, metals, and rare artifacts. Life was simple, predictable, and lonely. He liked it that way. The stars outside the station's window stretched endlessly, black and cold, but also full of possibility. Today, however, felt different. A small alien ship docked at the station, its hull scratched and patched from recent battles. Jack watched from across the room as the ship's ramp lowered. 3 aliens stepped out. Their skins shimmered with soft, pale colors, and their eyes were wide and watchful. The aliens moved carefully, speaking quietly in a language Jack did not understand. One of them carried a small crate, while another seemed to observe everything around him. The third walked slowly, almost timidly, behind the others. Jack rose and approached them. "Can I help you?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. The aliens paused, looking at him. The leader stepped forward and spoke in broken common, the human language spoken across many worlds. "Trader, we need safe passage," the alien said. His voice was soft but serious. "Our clan hunted, must escape warlord. Payment offered." Jack frowned. Safe passage was easy, but payment was tricky. He had heard of cases like this before. Sometimes aliens offered goods, sometimes rare technology, and sometimes something living. He motioned to a small table. "Sit. Explain your payment." The aliens moved closer. The leader opened the crate. Inside was a young alien woman. She looked at Jack with wide, dark eyes. Her movements were careful, slow, as if she were weighing each step. Jack felt a strange mix of emotions. She was clearly terrified. Her hands were bound lightly, more like a gesture of habit than a real threat. She is ours," the leader said. "Slave belongs to clan, payment for passage." Jack froze. A slave. He had dealt with illegal transactions before, but never like this. Something inside him resisted. I don't usually accept people as payment," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "She's a person. She has her own life." The alien leader looked at him steadily. "Our law, she is property, must be offered, safe with you." Jack frowned and rubbed his chin. This was complicated. If he refused, the clan might be captured by the warlord. If he accepted, he would carry a living being as payment. He thought about the stars, the empty cold of space, and the loneliness he had known all his life. He hated to see suffering. Finally, he nodded. "I will accept her," Jack said, his voice firm. "But she stays free. I will not treat her as property. If she wants to leave, she can." The aliens hesitated, but then bowed their heads. The leader said, "Grateful, safe hands." The young woman stayed silent. She watched Jack with cautious eyes, her head tilted slightly. Jack realized that her silence was not fear alone. It was observation. She studied him the way a bird watches the wind before flying. He felt a strange curiosity about her. Over the next few days, Jack prepared his small ship for departure. He called her Lyra, after a star constellation he had liked as a boy. Lyra did not speak much, but she moved around the ship with careful precision. Jack noticed how her hands traced over the control panels, sometimes fixing small problems before he even saw them. She seemed to understand the ship better than most humans he had known. Jack also noticed other humans staring at her. Lisa Grant, a mechanic who often worked at the station, whispered as she fixed a power conduit near the docking bay. "Jack, are you serious? That's a slave. She's useless unless you plan to sell her." Jack shook his head. "I'm not selling her. She's not property. She's a person." Lisa frowned but said nothing more. Jack knew she did not understand. Most humans did not. To them, life was a commodity. To Jack, it was a treasure. The journey began quietly. Lyra stayed close but did not intrude. She ate little, drank little, and watched everything. She learned quickly. She learned the hum of the engines, the lights of the control panel, even the rhythm of the stars outside the viewport. Jack felt a growing respect for her. She was not just a passenger, she was alert, thoughtful, and cautious. One night Jack sat in the cockpit staring at the stars. Lyra moved to stand beside him. She did not speak, but her presence was steady, calm. He realized that she was not afraid of him. She was observing him, deciding whether he could be trusted. "You do not need to be afraid," Jack said softly. "I will not hurt you, I promised." Lyra's eyes flicked to him, then back to the stars. She did not speak, but she nodded slightly. It was enough. Jack felt a strange warmth. In the cold expanse of space, he realized that he was not alone. Over the next few weeks, the ship traveled through quiet sectors, avoiding known pirate routes. Lyra proved useful in small ways. She repaired damaged circuits, found leaks in the air systems, and even recalibrated sensors that Jack thought were beyond repair. He began to rely on her judgment without even thinking about it. Other humans noticed. One trader, Tommy Reed, tried to bribe Jack to hand Lyra over. "She's worth a fortune," Tommy said. "Rare species, rare abilities, you can make a lot of credits." Jack shook his head firmly. "She's not for sale, she's free. I will protect her." Tommy laughed, a sharp, mocking sound. "You're crazy. Most humans would sell in a second." Jack ignored him. He had no intention of treating Lyra as a commodity. The thought made him sick. He watched her quietly as she repaired a damaged panel. Her movements were precise, elegant, almost like a dance. He realized she was more than a simple alien. She had knowledge and skill far beyond what he had expected. Lyra finally spoke one evening. Her voice was soft, almost musical. "I do not understand humans," she said. Jack turned, startled. She continued, "Many care only for wealth. You care for life." Jack smiled, a little awkwardly. "I guess that makes me unusual." Lyra tilted her head. "Unusual may be strong." Jack felt a flicker of pride. He did not fully understand her words, but he understood the meaning. She trusted him in her way. In the silence of the cockpit, they shared a connection. It was not friendship yet, but it was a beginning. They passed through a small system with twin suns. Lyra stood at the viewport, watching the light reflect across the ship's metallic walls. Jack noticed how her eyes seemed to absorb the colors, almost as if she were taking energy from them. He wondered what kind of life she had lived before, why her clan had been enslaved, and what she had seen. The days passed slowly. Jack kept careful logs, tracking their course, supplies, and any signs of danger. Lyra learned quickly, noting details he missed. Sometimes she would quietly point out a problem in the engines, and he would marvel at her intuition. He began to think of her less as a passenger and more as a partner in running the ship. One night, an alarm sounded. A small band of space pirates had spotted them and tried to intercept. Jack grabbed the controls, preparing for evasive maneuvers. Lyra moved swiftly, her hands touching the control panels. Lights flickered as she adjusted energy flows. Suddenly the shields held firm and the pirates' weapons bounced harmlessly. Jack stared at her. "How did you do that?" he asked, astonished. Lyra's eyes met his. "I protect. I learn quickly." Jack realized something important. Lyra was more than just an alien offered as payment. She was strong, intelligent, and capable of protecting herself and him. He felt a surge of respect and wonder. As the pirates fled, Jack leaned back in his chair, trying to process the day. Lyra stood quietly, calm and composed, as if nothing had happened. Jack realized he had underestimated her. She was not a burden. She was a treasure, even if he did not yet understand the full extent of her abilities. The journey continued, and Jack knew one thing clearly. Accepting Lyra had changed him. He could no longer see life as mere profit or loss. Every living being had value, and some treasures were far beyond any credits or goods. Lyra was one of them, and he would protect her, no matter the cost. In the quiet of space, under the light of distant stars, Jack and Lyra began a strange journey together. It was not just a journey through the galaxy, but a journey of trust, respect, and discovery. He did not yet know the full story of her past or the hidden power she carried. But he knew one thing: he had accepted her, not as a slave or payment, but as a person. And that decision would change everything. The ship moved silently through the dark stretch of space. Jack Morrow sat at the controls, eyes scanning the instruments, while Lyra remained nearby, standing close to the console. She did not sit, did not rest. Her movements were deliberate, careful, as if she were learning everything about the ship in a single day. Jack watched her, noticing small details he had never considered before. The way she touched a panel lightly, the way she tilted her head to see the readings more clearly, the way her eyes reflected the faint light of the control screens. "You seem very careful," Jack said quietly. Lyra looked up, her dark eyes meeting his. She tilted her head slightly, a gesture that reminded him of a curious animal studying its surroundings. "Careful must be," she said softly. "Ship fragile, life fragile." Jack nodded. She spoke little, but when she did, her words carried weight. He realized she did not waste words. She observed first, spoke only when it mattered. In some ways, he admired her more than any human companion he had ever known. Over the next few days, Jack taught Lyra small things about human life. He showed her how to use the communicator, how to read star charts, and how to manage basic ship repairs. She learned quickly, absorbing everything like a sponge. Sometimes she surprised him by fixing problems he had not even noticed yet. One day, a minor circuit in the engine room started sparking. Jack was about to rush down to fix it, but Lyra had already gone there. When he arrived, the sparks were gone and the system was stable. "How did you?" Jack began. "I watch, learn," Lyra said simply. She smiled faintly, a small curve of her lips, almost shy. Jack realized she did not brag, she did not seek praise, she just acted. During long hours of travel, Jack noticed that Lyra had a calm effect on the ship. When the engines hummed irregularly, she touched the panels and the hum steadied. When the lights flickered, she moved through the control room, her hands passing over wires, and the lights stabilized. Jack began to feel that she understood the ship in a way that was almost alive. It was as if she could sense its needs, its weaknesses, and its strengths. One evening, Lisa Grant, the station mechanic, visited Jack's ship during a routine check. She looked at Lyra and frowned. "Jack, I don't get it. That alien, she's supposed to be a slave. Why are you letting her move around like she owns the ship?" Jack shrugged. "Because she's not a slave, she's a person. I promised I would protect her, and besides, she helps more than anyone else I know." Lisa's brow furrowed. "Help? She barely talks. How is she helping?" Jack smiled faintly. "She fixes things before I even know they are broken." Lisa shook her head but did not argue further. She had seen strange things in space, but even she had to admit that Lyra had a rare skill. The nights were the hardest for Jack. He would sit at the cockpit, staring at the stars, feeling the loneliness that had always followed him. But now, Lyra sometimes joined him. She would stand quietly, looking at the distant lights of distant worlds, and he realized her presence was comforting. She did not speak much, but that was enough. One night, a small meteor shower passed near the ship. The sensors warned of debris that could damage the hull. Jack was about to maneuver, but Lyra placed her hands on the control panels. Lights flickered, energy flows adjusted themselves, and the ship's shield strengthened slightly. The meteors bounced off harmlessly. Jack stared at her in disbelief. "How?" he asked, his voice low. Lyra shrugged slightly. "I sense. Help." Jack realized that her abilities went beyond normal understanding. She was not just mechanically skilled. She seemed to have a connection with energy, with systems, almost as if she could feel them. He felt a mix of fear and awe. This was not an ordinary passenger. She was extraordinary. Over time, Jack and Lyra developed a quiet rhythm. Jack handled navigation and piloting, while Lyra focused on the ship and systems. They rarely spoke, but the silence was not uncomfortable. It was a shared understanding, a trust forming slowly between them. Jack found himself thinking about her more than he expected. He wondered about her past, about the clan that had enslaved her, and about what made her so different from others. During one long stretch of travel, they approached a small, abandoned space station. Jack decided to dock, hoping to find supplies and information. Lyra accompanied him, moving gracefully through the docking bay. She examined the control panels, the locks, and even the environmental systems. Jack realized that she could probably operate the station alone if needed. As they explored, Jack noticed other humans watching them. Traders, mechanics, and wanderers whispered among themselves. They were curious, cautious, maybe even suspicious. Jack knew what they were thinking, that Lyra was a commodity, a rare treasure to be used or sold. He felt a surge of protectiveness. She was not for sale. She was not property. She was a living being with her own choice, and he would defend that choice. Lyra herself noticed the attention but remained calm. She seemed to understand the human world quickly, learning the unspoken rules. Jack admired her patience and her quiet intelligence. She did not act out of fear or anger. She acted with purpose and thought. One day, while checking the ship's engines, Lyra discovered a hidden problem. A small leak in the fuel system could have caused a dangerous explosion. She worked silently, her hands moving over panels and wires. Jack watched, amazed at her skill. She repaired the leak perfectly, without tools, without hesitation. "You saved us," Jack said, his voice filled with gratitude. Lyra looked at him, calm and unassuming. "I protect," she said simply. "You keep promise. I trust." Jack felt a warmth he had not expected. Trust was rare in space, especially trust earned without words. Lyra had given him that trust, and he knew he had to honor it. He realized that accepting her as payment had been the right choice. She was not a burden. She was a partner, a guide, and a friend in her own way. The days passed, and their routine became comfortable. Lyra learned to cook simple meals, to maintain life support, and even to navigate minor star charts. Jack noticed that her abilities went beyond human understanding. She seemed to anticipate problems before they happened. She understood systems, energy flows, and even human behavior in ways he had never seen before. One quiet evening, as they drifted through a nebula filled with colorful gases, Jack asked, "Lyra, did anyone ever teach you all this?" Lyra shook her head. "No, learn myself. Watch." "Do," Jack nodded. He realized that her people must have been extraordinary, that her skills were natural, honed by necessity. He felt a deep respect for her. She was more than a slave offered as payment. She was a treasure in every sense of the word. Their journey was not without danger. One day, a group of space pirates detected their ship on a minor trade route. Jack prepared for evasive action, but Lyra moved quickly, touching the controls, adjusting energy flows. When the pirates fired, the shields held perfectly, and the weapons bounced harmlessly. Jack realized that Lyra's abilities were not just helpful, they were protective. She could defend the ship and its crew in ways he had never imagined. After the pirates fled, Jack and Lyra sat together in silence. He felt a deep sense of connection. She had saved them both, not out of obligation but out of choice. She was loyal in a way that could not be bought. He understood now that she was not just valuable, she was remarkable. As the days turned into weeks, Jack's respect and admiration for Lyra grew. He began to see her not just as a companion but as a guide, a partner in navigating the unknown. He knew the galaxy was dangerous, full of people who would see her as a prize, a weapon, or a commodity. He vowed silently that he would protect her, not as property but as a person, as a treasure. One night, while watching distant stars shimmer across the ship's viewport, Lyra spoke softly. "Humans strange. Some care only for wealth. You different." Jack smiled faintly. "Maybe that's why you trust me." She tilted her head. "Trust important. Life important." Jack nodded. He realized that accepting Lyra had changed him. Life was not just about survival or profit. It was about respect, trust, and care. He had found a companion, a guide, and a friend in her. She was no longer a payment. She was a partner, and together they would face whatever dangers the galaxy had in store. In the quiet hum of the ship, under the watchful stars, Jack and Lyra settled into their routine. They were no longer just trader and alien slave. They were two beings learning to trust each other, learning to survive, and learning to value life in a way neither had known before. And though danger lay ahead, Jack felt a strange comfort. He was not alone anymore, and Lyra had become far more than he had ever expected. A treasure of wisdom, skill, and courage. Jack Morrow sat in the cockpit, staring at the stars as the ship moved through an uncharted sector. Lyra stood nearby, her eyes scanning the control panels, her hands moving lightly over buttons and switches. She worked quietly, efficiently, as always. Jack could not help but notice that she seemed more confident now, her movements smoother, her eyes sharper. She had learned the ship quickly, and now she understood it almost as well as he did. "How far to the next system?" Jack asked. "3 days," Lyra said softly. "Safe, for now." Jack nodded. The galaxy was unpredictable, and even a quiet sector could hide danger. He knew that their safety was temporary. Pirates, rival traders, and other dangerous beings lurked everywhere. He trusted Lyra's instincts, but he also knew that no plan survived contact with reality. On the second day, the ship's sensors picked up an unknown signal. Jack frowned. It was weak, scattered, but definitely artificial. He traced the signal and realized it was a distress call from a nearby cargo vessel. "We can't ignore it," Jack said. "Someone might need help." Lyra nodded. "Help important." She moved to the navigation console and plotted a course toward the signal. Jack felt a surge of respect. She understood the importance of choice and action, even without his guidance. When they arrived, they found a small freighter under attack by a band of space pirates. Weapons fire lit the void, and the freighter struggled to maintain shields. Jack immediately moved to engage, but before he could react, Lyra stepped forward. Her hands touched the control panels, and a strange energy seemed to flow through the ship. The shields strengthened, the weapons recalibrated, and the ship's engines surged with power. "Lyra, what are you doing?" Jack asked, astonished. "Protect, help," she said simply. Jack watched in awe as the pirates' shots bounced harmlessly off the reinforced shields. The freighter's crew stared in disbelief, and Jack realized that Lyra was not just strong or skilled. She had abilities far beyond anything he had imagined. She could interact with energy, with systems in ways humans could not. She could protect the ship and its passengers in ways that seemed almost impossible. After the pirates retreated, Jack contacted the freighter. The captain was frantic but grateful. "Thank you," he said. "We thought we were done for," Jack nodded. "It was nothing, we just passed by." He glanced at Lyra. She remained calm, her hands resting lightly on the panels. She had done what was necessary without fear, without hesitation. Jack realized again that she was extraordinary. As they continued their journey, Jack began to think about what this meant. Lyra's abilities were rare, maybe unique. Her people had been enslaved because of her skills. She could interface with technology and energy in ways humans could not. That explained why her clan had been hunted and why they had offered her as payment. But Jack knew one thing clearly. She was not property, and he would never treat her as such. Over the next few days, they traveled cautiously, avoiding major trade routes. Jack noticed other humans beginning to take an interest. Traders whispered in docking bays, mechanics gossiped, and a few even tried to approach him with offers of credits or trade for Lyra. Jack refused every time. She was not for sale. She was not a tool. She was a person, and he would protect her freedom. One day, as they passed through a dense asteroid field, a larger threat appeared. A group of corporate enforcers, hired by a powerful organization, demanded that Jack hand over Lyra. They claimed she was property of her clan and that he had no right to keep her. Jack refused, but the enforcers did not. They fired warning shots trying to intimidate him. Jack acted quickly, moving the ship through the asteroids with skill, but Lyra did more than he could. She touched the control panels, and the ship seemed to respond to her in an almost living way. Shields adapted to the incoming fire, engines accelerated with precise timing, and weapon systems countered the attackers. The enforcers were forced to retreat, unable to match the combination of human skill and Lyra's abilities. After the encounter, Jack sat in the cockpit, catching his breath. "You saved us again," he said quietly. Lyra looked at him, her expression calm. "Protect, important. Choice, yours. Trust, yours." Jack felt a deep respect for her. She had chosen to stay with him not because she had to, but because she trusted him. And he knew he would honor that trust, no matter what threats they faced. As they traveled further, Jack began to realize that Lyra's presence changed more than just their safety. She brought calm to the ship, focus to his mind, and perspective to his life. He had always traveled alone, relying only on himself. Now with Lyra, he had someone who could anticipate danger, understand systems, and make choices that could save lives. She was a partner, not a passenger. One quiet evening, as the ship drifted near a colorful nebula, Jack asked, "Lyra, did anyone ever teach you these skills?" She shook her head. "No, learn myself. Watch, act." Jack nodded, impressed. She had survived alone, learned quickly, and now used her abilities not for herself but to help others. He realized that this was rare in any being, human or alien. She had a strength that went beyond physical ability. It was wisdom, courage, and understanding combined. The next day, Jack received a message from a distant trading hub. A powerful corporate agent, Paul Ryan, had learned of Lyra's abilities and offered a fortune for her. Jack read the message and felt a surge of anger. They wanted to take her, treat her as property, and profit from her skills. He crumpled the message and tossed it aside. "They don't understand," he said quietly. Lyra watched him, silent. "They think you're a tool, but you're not. You're a person, and I will not let them take you." Lyra's eyes softened. She moved closer and placed her hand briefly on his arm, a gesture of reassurance. Jack felt a warmth he had never experienced. He realized that their bond was growing stronger. It was not just trust. It was friendship, partnership, and something deeper. Over the next few weeks, they continued their journey carefully. Jack began to train Lyra in small human skills, navigation charts, communication codes, and human customs. She learned quickly, her memory sharp, her understanding deep. In turn, she taught him to notice things he had overlooked, the flow of energy, the patterns in machinery, and even subtle behaviors in people. Jack realized that her teaching was as valuable as any lesson he had learned in years of travel. One day, while passing through a quiet system, they discovered another group of aliens in need. Jack and Lyra worked together to repair a damaged ship, guide it safely through asteroid fields, and provide food and medical supplies. The aliens were grateful, but more importantly, Jack saw how Lyra's skills could make a real difference in the lives of others. She was not a slave, a tool, or a payment. She was a treasure in the truest sense, a being capable of saving lives and inspiring trust. As they traveled, Jack began to think about the future. The galaxy was full of danger, but also opportunity. He realized that having Lyra by his side changed everything. He no longer feared loneliness, and he no longer saw life as a series of transactions. Each being, each choice, each act of kindness had value beyond credits or profit. Lyra had taught him this simply by being herself. One evening, as they passed a small blue planet, Lyra spoke softly. "Humans strange. Some care only for wealth. You different." Jack smiled faintly. "Maybe that's why you trust me." Lyra tilted her head. "Trust important. Life important." Jack nodded. He realized that their journey was more than travel through space. It was a journey of understanding, respect, and discovery. Lyra had taught him lessons he had never known, simply by existing. She was not just a companion, she was a guide, a teacher, and a treasure he could not replace. The days passed, each one filled with small adventures, quiet moments, and discoveries. Jack and Lyra faced dangers, solved problems, and helped others. Their bond grew stronger with each passing light year. Jack realized that the galaxy was no longer a lonely place. With Lyra, he had found something rare, a connection based on trust, respect, and mutual care. And as they moved forward, Jack knew that more challenges awaited. Pirates, rival traders, and powerful organizations would come for Lyra, seeking to use her skills for their gain. But he was ready. Together, they were more than a trader and a passenger. They were partners, capable of facing anything the galaxy could throw at them. Jack looked at Lyra and smiled. She returned a small, quiet smile. In that moment, he knew that accepting her as payment had been the right choice. She was no longer a slave, no longer property. She was a living treasure, a being of rare skill, courage, and wisdom. And he would protect her, guide her, and stand by her side, no matter what dangers lay ahead. The stars stretched endlessly before them, but Jack no longer feared the unknown. With Lyra by his side, he felt ready for anything. The galaxy was vast, full of danger but also full of wonder. And together, they would face it all. Jack Morrow sat in the cockpit, staring at the stars. The galaxy stretched endlessly, but he felt a growing tension in the air. News of Lyra's abilities had begun to spread. Humans, aliens, and powerful corporations had started to take notice. Jack knew it was only a matter of time before someone tried to claim her, not for protection, but for profit. One morning, a message arrived from a distant trading hub. It was from a corporate agent named Paul Ryan. The message was clear and threatening. Ryan offered Jack a fortune in credits, safe passage, and protection if he handed Lyra over. If he refused, the message warned, they would send enforcers to take her by force. Jack crumpled the message in his hands. He looked at Lyra, who was quietly examining the ship's instruments. Her eyes were calm, her expression unreadable. Jack felt a surge of anger and protectiveness. She was not property. She was not a tool. She was a person, and he would not let anyone take her. "They want to buy you," Jack said softly, keeping his voice steady. "But I won't sell, I won't let them." Lyra tilted her head slightly. "Humans, some care only for wealth. You different, choice yours." Jack nodded. He understood. She trusted him to make the right decision. He had to stand firm, no matter the risk. Over the next few days, Jack made preparations. He avoided major trade routes, traveled through less-known sectors, and relied on Lyra's instincts to detect potential threats. Lyra's abilities had grown even stronger. She could sense energy fluctuations, stabilize the ship in emergencies, and even predict potential attacks before they happened. Jack began to rely on her more than ever. She was not just a companion, she was his partner and protector. One day, while passing near a small, abandoned space station, Jack detected a hidden surveillance drone. It was small, almost invisible, but Lyra noticed it immediately. She reached out, touching the console, and the drone's signal flickered and vanished. "They are watching," she said simply. Jack frowned. "We can't stop them all, they are too many." Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly. "We prepare, fight if needed, protect always." Jack realized that she had become more than a guide or helper. She had become a strategist, a being capable of making quick decisions in dangerous situations. He felt both pride and worry. Her abilities were incredible, but the more people learned about her, the greater the danger. A few days later, a group of corporate enforcers finally appeared. They were heavily armed, their ships bristling with weapons. Jack moved quickly, navigating through a dense asteroid field. Lyra's hands flew over the controls, adjusting energy flows, shields, and engines. The enforcers fired, but their weapons had little effect. The ship moved with incredible speed and precision, guided by Jack's skill and Lyra's unique abilities. After a tense chase, the enforcers retreated, unable to match their combined skill. Jack exhaled, leaning back in his seat. "You saved us again," he said quietly. Lyra looked at him, calm and composed. "Protect, important. Choice, yours. Trust, yours." Jack nodded. He felt a deep bond forming. She had chosen to stay with him, not because she had to, but because she trusted him. And he knew he would honor that trust, no matter the cost. As they continued their journey, Jack realized that they could no longer stay hidden. Powerful organizations and dangerous individuals would continue to pursue them. He decided it was time to challenge the system that allowed beings like Lyra to be treated as property. Jack contacted a group of human lawyers and advocates who specialized in alien rights. He explained Lyra's situation, her abilities, and her status as a free being. Together, they filed a legal claim challenging the contracts that allowed alien slavery. It was a risky move, but Jack knew it was necessary. Lyra's freedom depended on it. During this time, Lyra continued to demonstrate her abilities. She repaired damaged ships, stabilized failing energy systems, and even helped expose hidden slave networks in nearby systems. Jack watched with pride. She was not just surviving, she was helping others, making the galaxy a safer and more just place. One evening, as they traveled through a quiet sector, Jack asked, "Lyra, do you ever wish you had stayed with your clan?" Lyra shook her head. "No, enslaved, danger. Choice important, freedom more." Jack nodded. He understood. She valued freedom above all else, and that was why she trusted him. He felt a deep respect for her courage and wisdom. Their legal challenge began to gain attention. Other humans, inspired by Jack's stand, began to support him. Messages of encouragement, offers of aid, and even new allies arrived from different systems. Jack realized that their fight was not just about Lyra. It was about changing the way humans and aliens viewed freedom, respect, and life itself. One day, a powerful alien warlord who had previously enslaved Lyra's people learned of their journey. He sent agents to capture her, hoping to reclaim what he believed was his property. Jack and Lyra prepared for the encounter. The tension was high, but they were ready. When the agents arrived, they were met with resistance. Jack piloted the ship with skill, navigating through asteroid fields and dangerous sectors. Lyra used her abilities to stabilize the ship, protect them from attacks, and even disable enemy ships without harming the crews. Together they moved as one, human skill and alien power combined. After a long and tense standoff, the agents retreated. Jack and Lyra had prevailed, but they knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast and danger would always follow. But they also knew that they were stronger together than anyone had anticipated. Jack looked at Lyra and smiled. She returned a small, quiet smile. In that moment, he realized something important. Accepting her as payment had been the right choice. She was no longer a slave, no longer property. She was a living treasure, a being of rare skill, courage, and wisdom. As they continued their journey, Jack began to see the impact of their actions. Freed aliens were resettled with human help. Slave networks were exposed, and other humans began to question the morality of treating beings as property. Jack and Lyra were no longer just a trader and an alien. They were symbols of change, proof that empathy and courage could challenge injustice. One night, while drifting near a colorful nebula, Lyra spoke softly. "Humans, many care only for profit. You different. Trust important," Jack nodded. "Maybe that's why you stay with me." She tilted her head. "Stay, choice, trust earned, freedom protected." Jack felt a warmth in his chest. He realized that their journey was more than survival. It was a journey of understanding, respect, and partnership. Lyra had taught him lessons he had never known simply by existing. She was not just a companion. She was a guide, a protector, and a treasure he could not replace. The days passed, each one filled with challenges, small victories, and quiet moments. Jack and Lyra faced threats, solved problems, and helped others. Their bond grew stronger with each passing light year. Jack realized that the galaxy was no longer a lonely place. With Lyra, he had found something rare, a connection based on trust, respect, and care. And as they moved forward, Jack knew that the most difficult challenges were yet to come. Pirates, rival traders, and powerful organizations would continue to pursue Lyra, seeking to use her skills for their own gain. But he was ready. Together, they were more than a trader and a passenger. They were partners, capable of facing anything the galaxy could throw at them. Jack looked at Lyra and smiled. She returned a small, quiet smile. In that moment, he knew that the choice to protect her, to treat her as a person and not property, was the most important decision he had ever made. She was not just valuable, she was extraordinary. The stars stretched endlessly before them, but Jack no longer feared the unknown. With Lyra by his side, he felt ready for anything. The galaxy was full of danger, but also full of possibility, and together they would face it all. Jack knew one thing clearly: Lyra was no longer a payment. She was no longer a burden. She was a treasure, a partner, and a friend. And he would fight to protect her freedom, her choice, and her life, no matter the cost. In the quiet hum of the ship, under the light of distant stars, Jack and Lyra prepared for the future. It was uncertain, full of danger and challenges, but also full of hope. And for the first time in his life, Jack felt that he was not alone. He had a companion, a partner, and a treasure by his side. And together, they could face the galaxy. Jack Morrow sat in the cockpit, watching the stars. The galaxy stretched endlessly before him, full of light and shadow, danger and promise. He thought of everything they had been through, how Lyra had come to him as a payment, how he had accepted her not as property, but as a person, and how together they had faced pirates, enforcers, and corporate greed. Now he felt that the greatest challenge had arrived, but also that the path ahead could finally lead to freedom and peace. "We are close," Lyra said quietly, standing near the console. Her eyes were sharp, scanning the sensors, her hands ready to act at a moment's notice. She had become more confident, her movements precise, her mind quick. Jack realized how much they relied on each other now. She was not just his companion, she was his partner and he hers. Jack nodded. "I know, are you ready?" Lyra's dark eyes met his. "Ready, choice yours. Trust ours." Jack felt a warmth in his chest. The journey had changed him. He had learned that life was not a series of transactions or profits. Life was about respect, empathy, and courage. He looked at Lyra and realized that she had taught him more than any teacher, any book, or any journey ever could. She had shown him what it meant to value life and trust. They approached a system where the alien warlord who had enslaved Lyra's people still had influence. Intelligence suggested that he had gathered mercenaries and enforcers, hoping to reclaim Lyra. Jack tightened his grip on the controls. They would not run. They would not hide. They had a chance to stop the warlord's control and free others. "We do this carefully," Jack said. "No unnecessary risks, but no retreat either." Lyra nodded. "Protect, help, choice ours." As they entered the system, the warlord's ships appeared. They were faster, larger, and well-armed. Jack felt a surge of fear, but it was tempered by determination. He had Lyra, and together they had survived worse. He piloted the ship through asteroid fields, weaving between rocks and debris, while Lyra used her abilities to stabilize the ship, strengthen shields, and even disrupt enemy systems. The warlord's ships faltered, unable to match the coordination between human skill and Lyra's alien power. During the battle, Jack realized that the key was not just strength, but strategy. He relied on Lyra's instincts, her ability to sense energy and systems, while he handled navigation and tactics. Together, they moved as one, a team stronger than any enemy. One by one, the warlord's ships were forced to retreat or were disabled without causing harm. Lyra's precision and skill ensured that no lives were lost unnecessarily. After the confrontation, Jack contacted the warlord's remaining allies. He offered a choice: cooperate peacefully, release enslaved aliens, and cease hostilities. The warlord, impressed and frustrated by Jack and Lyra's skill, agreed. Slowly, the networks of control began to dissolve. Freed aliens were guided to safe locations, and the galaxy began to recognize that Lyra was not property, but a being with her own rights and choices. Jack felt relief and pride. The fight was over, not with violence but with courage, strategy, and respect. Lyra stood quietly, observing the aftermath. She did not gloat or celebrate loudly. Her calm strength was a lesson in itself. Power could be used responsibly, and freedom was worth protecting. As the news spread through human and alien networks, Jack realized that their actions had inspired others. Humans began questioning the morality of slavery and property laws. Other aliens, once oppressed, started to gain recognition and aid. Jack and Lyra were no longer just a trader and a passenger. They had become symbols of change, proof that empathy and courage could alter the galaxy. One quiet evening, Jack and Lyra traveled near a small, peaceful planet. The stars reflected in the ship's windows, creating a soft glow. Jack sat back, exhausted but content. He looked at Lyra and smiled. "We did it together." Lyra's eyes softened. "Together always, freedom important, life important." Jack nodded. He realized that her lessons went beyond skill or ability. She had taught him about choice, trust, and the value of life. She was a treasure, not in the sense of wealth, but in the sense of wisdom, courage, and integrity. Over the following weeks, Jack helped resettle freed aliens, guided ships to safe passages, and worked to dismantle remaining slave networks. Lyra continued to assist, using her abilities to repair, stabilize, and protect. Together, they created a ripple of positive change. Humans and aliens alike began to see that respect and freedom were more valuable than credits or power. One day, while docking at a busy trade station, Jack noticed several humans watching them closely. He knew they were curious, perhaps even skeptical. A trader approached, asking about Lyra. Jack explained simply, "She is free. She is a partner, a friend, not a tool, not property." The trader frowned but nodded slowly. Jack realized that the message was spreading, that humans could value life beyond profit. He looked at Lyra, who watched the interaction quietly. She did not need words to understand. Her presence alone commanded respect and attention. As they prepared to leave the station, Lyra spoke softly. "Humans, many, care only for profit. You different. Choice, important. Trust, ours." Jack smiled. "And I will honor that always. Together we protect life, respect freedom, and face whatever comes next." Their journey continued, not just as travelers in the galaxy, but as partners shaping a better future. They navigated systems filled with danger, helped those in need, and challenged injustice wherever they found it. Jack realized that the galaxy was vast, but they could make a difference, one choice at a time. One quiet night, as the ship drifted past a glowing nebula, Jack reflected on their journey. Lyra had arrived as a payment, a slave offered as property. Now she was far more than that. She was a guide, a protector, a friend, and a treasure. He had accepted her not for profit but for respect and empathy, and that choice had changed both of their lives. Lyra looked at the nebula, then at Jack. "Journey long, life uncertain, together strong." Jack nodded. "Yes, together we can face anything. Freedom, choice, life, all important. We protect them together." They traveled on, their bond stronger than ever. Danger would come, but they were ready. The galaxy was unpredictable, full of challenges, but also full of beauty. Jack and Lyra knew that together they could face whatever lay ahead. As the stars stretched endlessly before them, Jack felt a sense of peace. Lyra was not a payment, not a burden, not property. She was a treasure, a living being of skill, courage, and wisdom. She had chosen to trust him, and he had chosen to protect her. Together, they had faced danger, injustice, and the unknown. Together, they had made a difference. And for the first time in his life, Jack felt truly at home in the galaxy. Not because of wealth, credits, or profit, but because he had found a companion who shared his respect for life, his courage, and his empathy. Lyra was that companion, that partner, that treasure, and he knew that whatever came next, they would face it side by side. Jack looked at Lyra one last time as they prepared to jump to hyperspace. She smiled faintly, a quiet expression of trust and friendship. Jack returned the smile, feeling a deep sense of connection and gratitude. Together, they were more than a trader and an alien. They were a team, a symbol of courage and choice, and proof that life was more valuable than anything else in the galaxy. And as the stars blurred past their ship, racing into the unknown, Jack knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was wide, full of possibility, and he and Lyra would face it together, protecting life, honoring choice, and proving that empathy was the greatest strength of all. Freedom, trust, and respect had won. And the treasure that had arrived as a payment was now a partner for life, a guide, and a beacon of hope for the galaxy.